Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is a show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, my guest is going to be Gregg Bell. Gregg is a music manager. We talk to musicians a lot. We talk about music a lot. Gregg is on the management side of this game, and it'll be fun to hear his perspective on things. And he'll be able to tell you about a couple of the bands that he manages, one of which is very near and dear to our hearts on Bourbon Turntable, but we'll get more into that in just a few minutes. Before we do that, I want to tell you about Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends that produce content for the whiskey enthusiast. Shows like Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. Alan and Christy will talk with distillers from across the country and around the world about anything and everything in terms of distillation. Alan also has a show called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. On that show, if you have a question about distillation, ask Alan. Send him a question. He'll post a video answer, and we will all learn from your curiosity. If you have ghosts, you have everything is another show from Alan and his wife, Kim. And this show, get into everything unusual, spiritual, macabre, Bigfoot, UFOs, legends, all kinds of really cool stuff. You just need to check it out so you know what you're missing. My Whiskey Den with Pat, Mike, and Mitch every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time. My Whiskey Den is where craft whiskey is king. Be sure to join them for some of their great guests, unique tastings, and it's always fun to hang out with all the cool folks in the chat. Whiskey in My Wedding Ring is with David Levine. David does a great job interviewing distillers. He also does a great job with his blog where he posts outstanding, very useful reviews that you can use. As for our show, Bourbon Turntable, if you're watching us now on YouTube, please kindly subscribe. We would love for you to do that so we can have you be part of our family each and every week. You can also listen to the show, and you can subscribe to us there on Apple, Spotify, and Google podcast services. So, with all that being said, let's get to Wanted Management and Gregg Bell. So I'm really thrilled to bring on our guest here tonight, Gregg Bell with Wanted Management. Gregg, welcome to Bourbon Turntable.
Thank you, Kevin. Thrilled to be here. Have you been across the globe on the podcast yet? Have you had Australia on?
I have.
Oh, you have?
Jesse Redwing is a blues musician out of Sydney, and he was on the podcast I think last year. So this is our second Australian guest, and I've had a guest out of Canada and a guest out of Germany. So
love it.
We're going global here. We're going
international.
Global. Yeah. Now I don't pick up the traditional Australian accent from you.
I'm too old a dog to pick that up.
Yeah.
I've been here 14 years.
Okay.
Just shy of 14 years. Yes. And everyone always asks what brought me here, and I said, what makes a guy do anything in life pretty much like that? And it involves a woman. So
of course it involves a woman.
My wife is from Perth.
Okay.
So we moved to Perth, spent 3 years in Perth, and have been in Sydney ever since.
Yeah. Now I think that from some of our back and forth getting this set up, I think you mentioned that you've got some South Carolina connections. Is that where you're from?
I'm originally from Syracuse.
Okay.
Got out of college and had just had it with the winters and the snow. So I knew that I wanted to do music. I knew from a young age I wanted to work in music. I played in some bands and did some messing around as a kid in high school and in college. I quickly realized that I had no musical talent to speak of, so that if I was going to be involved in music, it would be in the business side of things. So I went to school, got a degree, got out of school, packed up everything in my car, and drove to Los Angeles. Didn't know anybody out there, didn't have any connections in the industry, but which just pointed the car west and hit the road and was there for 21 years.
Wow.
Worked for a variety of major and indie labels. So this was in 91. So this was kind of right. Everything was still, the CD boom was still going on. And then towards the end of the 90s is kind of when Napster popped up and the industry really changed. So after 10 years at record labels, I segued into artist management and did that for 11 years. And then moved over. When we moved over here, that's a long story in itself, but it was a very difficult transition because we went to Perth. And Perth is the most remote city in the world. Absolutely beautiful, but far away from everything. So I liken it to if you take New York and you take LA and go to Chicago and take everything west of Chicago out except for San Diego. That's what Australia is like. So it's roughly the same size as the United States, but there's nothing in the middle of the country or out west except for Perth. So I was out there. I left 20 years of friends. I left my career because I couldn't do music there. And it was really just a challenging time, but it was really good. Found a band, got back into the music, which I knew I would, and just kind of grew it from there.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, we'll get more into music, but the other part of this is whiskey. And
yes.
You got something pretty cool that you're going to drink tonight. So tell everybody what you've got.
So what I have is Blasphemy, and I'm in Alexandria. It's a fantastic distillery. They started with a gin and kind of grew from there. And they have a tasting room. You can do tours. They have a little cocktail lounge set up where you can get snacks and get customized cocktails, things like that. But this is a collaboration that they did with the St. Alley Coffee Company in Melbourne. So it's a coffee infused malt whiskey. And it's actually nice that it is just after midday here because there is caffeine in this, and I'm hesitant sometimes to drink it at night for fear of whether the bourbon or the caffeine is going to be the dominant as I try and go to sleep at night. But I decided to try this one first as a nod to Australia.
Hold that bottle up there and get a good look. Very cool. Blasphemy from Archie Rose Distillery. No relation, by the way. No relation, but I too am drinking an Australian whiskey, a single malt from Starward, so a distillery in Australia. So cheers to Gregg being on the show.
And I'm honoring one of my favorites.
There you go.
I had Cool. I don't break this out often, but I figured it was a good time. Good time to break it out. So
perfect.
Cheers, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you moved to LA and you started working with the labels. Can you say which labels you worked for?
Yeah, absolutely. The first was Hollywood Records, which was owned by Disney. From Hollywood, I went to a label called Caliber Records, and the only people that know Caliber Records are the people that they stiffed and owed money to. No one else knows them. But that from there, I went to Warner Discovery Records, which was a subsidiary of Warner Music, the Warner Music Group. I was there for a few years. Warner gave Discovery to Seymour Stein and Sire Records. So we became the West Coast office of Sire Records. So Seymour Stein is a legendary figure, best known for signing Madonna, but he signed the Replacements, the Talking Heads,
very cool.
all the Cure, Cult, Echo and the Bunnymen, all that stuff, the Dead Boys, the Ramones, all that was Seymour. I was there for a year with him, which was a thrill because of what he's done, and the Replacements are one of my favorite bands. So it was really great to work with him. That office ended up closing, and this is what I alluded to earlier, getting into kind of the industry shrinking. I went to Restless Records, which was part of the. They were in the part of the BMG family and also Regency. So we did a lot of the movies for Regency, like LA Confidential, Fight Club. We would do the soundtracks. And then I lost my job there when they closed. And I had a friend of mine that called me up and said, "Hey, I have this artist that I'm friends with. Her husband is a filmmaker, independent documentary filmmaker, and he has a movie coming out, and she has 4 songs in it, and wants to release an album, kind of not the soundtrack, but music featured in."
Mm-hmm.
So I met with her, and we agreed to a 4-month contract, and that 4 months turned into 11 years. And, we worked daily. Like I was on retainer with her. It was a amazing relationship. We got to do a lot of really fun stuff. It was interesting because I was kind of a little bit off to the side of all the major labels, and we were just kind of in our own little niche, but we were able to do some really cool stuff. And from there, I picked up Michael McDermott out of Chicago, fantastic singer-songwriter, Susan Marshall, a phenomenal singer out of Memphis, Tennessee, who we're still in touch and talking about doing some stuff together again. So I was able to do stuff like that. I also worked with Robbie Takak from the Goo Goo Dolls. He had a label called Good Caramel. And his idea for Good Caramel was to take what Seattle had done with grunge and take that to Buffalo. So we only had Buffalo bands. For the launch was great because we had a band called the Juliet Dagger, which was probably my favorite. They were a punk rock band. We had kind of an emo band called Last Conservative, and we had a very commercial band called Clear, commercial rock, like Nickelback, like Foo Fighters, stuff like that. So I worked with Robbie for a while, and then my girlfriend at the time moved over to LA. So we were there for a few years, and then her dad became ill, and that's what prompted our move back to Australia. Okay. So we came back to look after him, help him with his business, and then that was my exit from Los Angeles.
Okay, that's quite a ride.
Looking back, it is.
Yeah. So, what was the first thing that really sparked your interest in music? What captured you and your attention as a young Gregg to make you want to get into music like you did?
I think it was just the relationship I had with music. I think really at a young age, and I don't have any older siblings. I was the oldest. I have a younger sister. So nobody handed me the records, but I just remember falling in love with ELO, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath. I had these records, and I just remember, you'd have a bad day at school, and you'd come home, and you'd put headphones on, put on a record, made in Japan by Deep Purple, put it on, and just get taken away somewhere else. Yeah. And so music really, one of my favorite things when I talk about the work that I do, one of my favorite things in the world is being in a venue, club or theater, sometimes an arena, when the lights go down and there's just that crazy energy of all those people that they're your audience tonight. And they've left their boyfriend problems, their girlfriend problems, their money problems, their parental problems, job problems. They've left all of that, and they're yours. They are yours to take on a ride for the next hour and a half, whatever.
Right.
And that's so that anticipation for that, and that realization that you're providing this for these people that can help them cope with whatever else is going on in their life, because it's that. And I feel very fortunate to have that relationship, and it kind of makes me sad in a way that kids today don't have that relationship with music. Everything has been so just, you don't have the attention span to live with a record. I mean, when we were kids, we bought albums, and whether you liked the album or not, you listened to it because you paid for it and it was yours. And now, like with streaming, like there's records that by artists that I love, like a good example would be probably Gary Clark Jr., who I love. I think I listened to his last record once, and it wasn't for any reason other than all this stuff gets stacked up on top of it to listen to that I got to, so that we have this kind of, you just don't have that intimate relationship that you used to have with music where you read the lyrics and the liner notes and, all of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you listened to every song on the album because it's a pain in the butt to skip a song on an LP. It's just not pushing a button. You've got to get up and lift up the stylus and move it over and try to hit the right place on the groove. And no, you're not skipping a song. You're listening to everything. And song placement meant something. The first song on side A, that was important. The last song on side A, the first song on side B, all those things were very important and strategic in how an album was logistically or thematically structured. It's not that way anymore. It's, here's a bunch of singles and maybe there's an album, maybe there's not. And it's very, very different. The albums were ways to mark time and mark events in our lives. And it's not necessarily that way anymore.
Yeah. And those artists that you loved, you like Exile on Main Street, one of my favorite records, like the whole story behind the making of that record and the Stones being on exile in France and this mansion and all these weirdos coming in and out and Graham Parsons coming in and out. And that record stands as a capsule of that time in their lives. And, that story through the process of that record and all those songs, it's just like, I look at like that and we don't really have that per se today. Not by, there are examples of great records that come out, but, we don't have like those Wish You Were Here's and where you just get people's attention to take and digest an entire piece of work in the form of all these songs.
Yeah. It's very different. Very different. So you've mentioned a few, but what are some other artists or albums that were really important to you, either as a teenager or in college or even today?
I do give my parents a lot of credit because my parents were not musical, but they took my sister and I to a lot of really cool stuff. Like we went to see Captain and Tennille. We went to see Barry Manilow. We went to see Neil Diamond. We went to see Kenny Rogers. So they would take us to things like that. And I think that really also kind of bit me in that whole, like the production, the performances. So that was definitely influential. As a kid, I grew up in Syracuse. So we had two classic rock, or I guess at that point, two rock stations. And they would play, you'd hear everything from like new Tom Petty and new Black Crowes to the standard Zeppelin, Floyd, Hendrix, Who, the stuff that you normally hear. Right. I did get into some of the hair band stuff in the 80s because that's when I was a kid. So I did, growing up, as a kid, that was a steady diet of that. And when I really found my taste, I described it a few years ago, my perfect intersection of music was Black Diamond, the song Black Diamond, because it went from Kiss's Black Diamond to the Replacements' Black Diamond. And that kind of transition kind of connected my two worlds of what I love. So I love the obvious Zepp, Stones, Aerosmith. The vintage Aerosmith is one of my favorite bands. But then I like a lot of, Henry Rollins had this thing, he talked about the 80-20 rule. So he said 80% of my musical diet should be protein and 20% should be carbohydrate. I'm not quite there. I'm kind of 60-40, but I do try to stay up on stuff and listen to a lot of new stuff, as well as listening. I listen to a lot of most of the old stuff I listen to are bootlegs. Yeah. Because I have a huge collection of bootlegs. I love bootlegs. So there's a lot of that as well. So it's all over the board.
Yeah. So what are your most prized bootleg possessions?
I have, it's funny because most of them are digital files, so there aren't anything. But I do have a storage unit. I have a copy of. I have a couple of. Um, Totally blanking on the name. The Pig, trademark of quality. Those bootlegs, and then I also have a white. I can't remember the title, but it's a white vinyl Led Zeppelin "Stairway to Heaven" that came in like a manila folder. So I've had that forever. So that's in storage. And I'll tell you, actually, I'll give you a really good story about vinyl. And
Yeah.
so in '96, another one of my favorite bands is Tool. And in '96, they put out Anima. And I had a bunch of friends at the label, and I had a lot of connections to the band. And I had 2 copies of this vinyl from 1986. So I just moved my storage from Los Angeles to Sydney. And I told my wife, I'm like, I think I have 2, and Tool have not reissued that record. So Tool fans go bananas for vinyl. And every time they put out a new Crystal Skull sculpture or something, one of their tchotchkes, people are just like, please, will you release this album on vinyl? Will you release this album on vinyl? So I knew that I could get some decent money for it. So I put it on eBay when I went to LA and sold it and got really good money for it. But my favorite part of the story is that the guy that bought it was in Seattle, and I'm like, he paid all this money for it. So now I'm freaking out of like, how do I get this vinyl to him like in good shape so it doesn't get warped or
right.
So he said, I have family in LA. I'll come down and we can meet. So I'm like, perfect. That way I don't got to worry about it. So he sends me this address, and my wife is freaking out. And she's like, what is this address? Don't go at night. Don't take somebody with you. And I'm like, it's fine. So I said, what is this? Just so I know what I'm looking for. And he said, it's a record shop, a high-end record shop, high-end stereo record shop. So I said, okay, we met in the parking lot, and he said, hey, do you want to see if we can put it on in there? And I said, it's your record now. You can, absolutely. So we went inside and talked to the guys, and he held the record up and said, this, you probably haven't seen this before. And they were like, oh. So they had a room with a $100,000 stereo system. And we went into this room, and Kevin, I've heard Anima thousands of times, but I tell you, when that needle dropped on that first track, every hair on my body was like those speakers that I said to the guy, I'm like, just out of curiosity, if I wanted that turntable, how much would that turntable cost? He said $20,000. So that was a thrill to hear that record that loud in that room. Just, it was like the old Maxell ad, where you're sitting in there with the drink coming back. Across the table.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Favorite track on Anima?
Probably 46 and 2.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing, but probably 46 and 2.
Yeah. It's a great album, but I think that song is it's a standout for sure.
They're actually, we're going to see them. They're here in a little under a month with
cool.
Playing a festival here with Garbage, Weezer. There's a whole mess of people, but we're really going. My wife's going to see Weezer. I'm going to see Tool.
Yeah.
So we'll get our fix.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I've got a couple of close friends that are huge Tool fans, and I think they're awesome too. I saw them, 2 years ago on the Fear Inoculum tour, and just absolutely incredible show.
Yeah, there's something special. And so when I moved to LA, Adam, the guitar player, his girlfriend worked in the office that I worked in. So that's how I first met up with them. And I would go see them in these tiny little clubs and parties, and when they were still hanging out with Green Jelly and all that was going on. So I kind of really watched them very closely through Anima. And then when Lateralist came out, I kind of everybody I knew that worked around them, publicity and label wise, was kind of gone because they went from Zoo to somebody acquired Zoo, and it changed. So I didn't really see them. So I saw them on Fear Inoculum right before, in February of 2020. So right before the world shut down.
Right.
I saw them. And that was a thrill. So they did 2 shows, and I took my wife to the first one, and she's like, "Oh, I love Sober. I can't wait to hear Sober." And I said, "Yeah, they're not going to play that." She's like, I'm like, "You're not going to hear it." But they played Tempest, which was the first time that they played Tempest live.
Yeah.
From Fear Inoculum was in Sydney, and that made it worth going that second night by myself.
Yeah.
Like that, I was over the moon when they went into that.
Yeah, they actually played Sober the night that I saw them, which I was surprised. But don't tell your wife. I don't want to.
No, I know. She's like, that's the only song I know. I'm like, yeah, they're not going to play it.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you know any of the songs. You just sit there and you listen, you enjoy it. So
amazing show.
Yeah. So what are the things that you listen to today? And I want to ask this question kind of in twofold. One, as a music fan, how do you find music? And as music management, how do you find music or bands that you would want to represent?
Well, for just staying current and listening, Spotify. I use Spotify a lot with recommendations. I read a ton of music press. So I read a lot of United States music press. I read all the Australian music press. So I get little kind of, I'll see a name pop up and read something about it and think that sounds interesting, and then I'll hear it somewhere else. So I'll bring it up on Spotify, make a note and go back and listen to it. So that's probably most of that stuff, or someone will tell me about it, or I'll see something that somebody posts on Instagram. My Wanted Management Instagram, I follow a heap of artists and bands. And so if somebody recommends something, or someone's like, "Oh, I just sang on this record," or "I played guitar," or "I just had so-and-so play guitar on this track." So I'll find stuff that way as well. In terms of the management is trickier because I liken management to marriage or dating. When you're dating, you only got to worry about one person. When you're managing a band, it's like dating 4 or 5 people because there's all these different personalities and egos. So they come to you in different ways. Sometimes people will recommend them. We can get into like Parker Barrow. I know you're very familiar with Parker Barrow. So for Parker Barrow, they came to me ironically through a music journalist in Perth. And he sent me a note and said, "Hey, I just interviewed this band. They had just released Jukebox Gypsies, or it was not long after Jukebox Gypsies." And he said, "You need to check this band out. I just interviewed them. They're great kids." He interviewed Dylan and Megan. He said, "They're great kids. You should really, this is like right up your alley." Because one thing I should mention about my management company, outside of since 2001 when it started, I've had 2 male artists that I've managed. Everybody else has been female. And that wasn't for any reason or choice. It just was the way they came to me. So I get a lot of people like approaching me like that because they know it's a lot easier with women, I found, or there's certain doors that are open to women because they're women in the industry. And there's something that I've always thought very powerful about a girl with a guitar, a woman with a guitar. So, for example, like with Katrina, the one that I managed in LA, she was a good guitar player, but not a somebody that you would ever confuse with Jeff Beck. But I was able to get her endorsed by Fender, and we were able to do things because you have all the guys in the black T-shirts with the long hair, but you put a pretty girl in that catalog as well in it. So that's been a big part of it as well. But I guess there isn't a one answer to that question. Everything happens kind of in a different way. Jane Lee Hooker, Tracy Hightop, the guitar player, reached out on Instagram and said, "Hey, I'm Tracy. I play guitar, and Jane Lee Hooker. We're looking for management. Would you be interested?" And we I knew them through Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's. Kathy had a band called, I think it was the Delphines at that time, and they had done some touring with Jane Lee Hooker. She told me one night, you got to see this band. This band is killer. So they got on my radar then, which was probably, that was before I moved to Australia. And then Tracy sent me that note, and it just kind of, I said, well, just so you know, I'm not in LA anymore. I'm in Sydney. But the conversation started from there. And then, we started working together.
Yeah. Cool.
So I didn't answer your question exactly.
No.
But there's a whole host of ways. There have been a few artists that I've gone after, but most have been, it's pretty organic. Usually the way it happens is we have a connection somewhere, or we have somebody that links us up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to peel back that onion just a little bit more in a second, but first of all, let's have another pour of some whiskey. And you're a big Buffalo Trace guy, big Buffalo Trace fan, so we're going to do a little Blantons tonight. That is, you got the green label Blantons. There you go.
So this, I believe, and you may know this better than me, this is only international export. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think they've started releasing a limited quantity stateside, but it is primarily an export product, or it was, I believe it was exclusively for a long, long time. But so
that bottle that you have is 153 Australian dollars or 100 American dollars here, if I were to buy that here.
Well, it's probably, if you can find it on a shelf, which in the last, 8-10 years, you really can't. It's probably now $75, and you get it on the secondary market for between 100 and 150, depending on how desperate the person is that's wanting to buy it.
Oh,
yeah. But
so I guess that's not that bad.
No, it's not. And if you can find it on the shelf, you're really, that's something, because you can't right now, and haven't been for quite a while. It's been very heavily allocated here in the United States.
And I'll tell you, this one I bought we have a store called Dan Murphy, and the wax tie was just slightly off. So the woman literally put it on the discount shelf, and I was right behind her and grabbed it and she looked back and laughed, and she said to one of her coworkers, "I told you that wasn't going to last." Because basically she put it down, I picked it up. I'm like, I'll take that.
Yeah. No, nobody's going to care about that. No, not a bit. But so how did you get into Buffalo Trace? I know that you like the Buffalo Trace, the main line brand. You like the Blantons. How did you get into Buffalo Trace?
So, how I got into, I'm trying to think back. When I was in college, I was the Jim Beam guy. Cheers.
Cheers.
So I kind of, as a kid, when you don't really know, and the bourbon scene isn't anywhere near what it is now.
Right.
I went through the Jack Daniels phase because it's what my dad drank. I went through the Maker's Mark phase. And then Greg Dooley, who has a band called the Afghan Wigs and also was in the Twilight Singers, and is a huge influence on me. He has a bar in Los Angeles called The Shortstop. And I was in there one night, and when he first opened the bar, he would bartend. So you'd go in, and I knew him from music, and I tried to sign the Afghan Wigs after they got let go from Elektra. So he's like, "Have you ever had Blanton's?" And I said, "No, what's that?" He said, "It's bourbon." He said, "I like to call it liquid heroin." So, let me try it. And he poured me one, and I was hooked. I loved it. Just loved the smoothness, loved the flavor. And then I think probably I went to Buffalo Trace from there just to try something different. And it's an easy bottle to find. Buffalo Trace here is about $40 US. So it's a pretty reasonable bottle. And so I kind of mix it up with, I just bought a red wine cask. Basil Hayden.
Basil Hayden. Yeah.
Basil Hayden, sorry. So this was actually at our Aldi, and they had it on special. So I'm like, I like the regular basils. So I'll give this one a try.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. So
Yeah.
I always have Blantons, but then I kind of pepper it with whatever else I kind of collect.
Sure.
It's not as good as your wall.
Well, this is part of it. My wife complains frequently that every closet, every level of the house, it's not good. I mean, it's not good. But it's one of those things. It could be worse.
Absolutely
could be worse. It could be heroin. I mean, come on, give me a break.
That's right.
I'm not stocking up on heroin, honey. So all right. So because I go through a similar process as you in finding new music and finding guests to be on our show. And like you mentioned, Parker Barrow, they were. I will in warm months. I'll sit on my patio or sit on my back deck, have a bottle of whiskey and a glass and my speakers, and just start going through Spotify, and then I'll scroll through Instagram, and Parker Barrow popped up on one of the paid for ads or whatever on Instagram, and I thought, well, this sounds pretty cool. And went to Spotify, listened to the album, messaged the band through Instagram, and they answered the next morning, and we had them scheduled to be on the show within a couple of weeks, and that's just kind of the process I go through, and it's I just keep a list of, okay, as these are people that I want to get in touch with and want to contact and try to get on, and most people are pretty responsive. Some are not. And I would say with very few exceptions, people that come on the show are just, they're fantastic. They're very friendly. They're open. They're conversational, and whether they've been on a 1,000 podcasts or 5, they're very very good guests, and so it's a cool process, and that I was hoping I would get some sort of great secret that you had for finding new music, but it sounds like you're kind of going down the same path I am.
Yeah, I always have my antenna up for stuff like that, and for example, there's a band in Melbourne. So ironically, I don't manage anybody in Australia, which isn't for lack of trying, but there was a band that I really was interested in Melbourne, female band, and the lead singer of another Australian band that I used to manage, she actually said, "Hey, you should check out this band." It's like, that's how I found them, because she said, "You'll love these girls. They're right up your alley." And I did pursue them, but they weren't interested. But they're doing really well now, so somebody is obviously working with them. But so you don't always hit on the things you take a swing at, but you just find it has to move me, and and I did A&R. So when I worked at labels, my primary responsibility, I did pretty much everything. So I did marketing, publicity, did some production. But A&R was the main thing. So A&R was signing bands, going into the studio, and making records. So I don't need everything to be put together perfectly to see something that intrigues me. I can kind of see the diamonds in the rough, and I can see the bands that might not be quite there yet. So I'm always open to stuff like that. So for example, with Parker Barrow, so Dylan kept writing to me. And I had listened to the record, and in fairness, I probably had the record on while I was doing stuff, or I liked it, but I didn't. So he kept coming at me, and I'm like, I'm going to focus on this record, listen to it. So I put it on and I called him up and I said, hey, so I listened to your record. He said, okay. And I said, I realized that I don't like it. And he just said, oh. And I said, I effing love it. Let's do this. And he was like, oh. And, going back to the dating analogy, I learned early on, I can't want this more than you want this.
Right.
If I want this more than you want this, it's not going to work. And I always tell bands that making it in this business is like pushing a parked car uphill with the emergency brake on. And if everybody is not pushing that car up that hill, it's not going to work. Right. And I had a band here, one of my bands that I managed in Australia had everything that they needed to be a hugely successful international band. The only thing that they lacked was the work ethic.
Right.
And that killed them in the end.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. And I realized that, and there was a group that I managed in LA that I had a kind of a similar realization about. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, it's wasting my time. And, I said to them, I arranged a really high profile support for them in Perth. And it was a great show. Internationally famous band they were playing with, Rose Tattoo, and they couldn't do the show because one of the guitar players had a wedding. So I said to the leader of the band, I said, "Oh, okay, she in the wedding? She part of the wedding?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Is it a family wedding?" And she said, "No." And I said, "She playing at the wedding?" She said, "No, she's just going to party." So I said, "Okay, all right." So I said, "Here's your choices. You can pick one of these three things. You can either talk her out of it and do this gig. If she doesn't do the gig, you can fire her. And if neither of those happen, I'm out." Mm-hmm. And that was when I left them. So because I just realized we're not, you have to have similar goals. You have to have a similar drive. You have to have realistic expectations. And so before I get involved with an artist, there's kind of this courtship. Like there is dating, you go out for a few dinners, you go to a movie, maybe a show. So you need to talk and figure out, are we on the same page? Are we focused on the same things? Do we want, there's a lot of sacrifices you have to make, a lot of sacrifices. One of my least favorite parts of managing in Australia is I very routinely have conference calls at midnight because I'm dealing with the band on the East Coast. Right. And a booking agent in Germany or a publicist in Spain or a booking agent in the UK. So that all kind of goes into it. But once you get that, and I find that I always tell them also, once you get rolling, that's when stuff happens. Right. Like activity begets activity. So when there's a lot going on, it's not me pushing them out there, but it's me fielding because people are coming at me saying, "Hey, are they available for this? Hey, can we do this?"
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what your role has been in what all's going on with Parker Barrow, but those guys have been working their butts off. I mean, they've been everywhere, touring nonstop, and they're absolutely talented. Have one of the most charismatic, energetic, beautiful, talented voices as their lead singer. And they're working like crazy. I mean, to me, that all adds up to you've highly improved your chances of moving up to that next level and beyond.
I don't have enough good things to say about them. And one of my favorite things about them that I always tell people as well, and you can appreciate this with knowing them also, is that as talented as they are, and they're wildly talented as songwriters, as performers, musicians, as talented as they are with all that, they're just lovely people. Like They are just the nicest people. And that really resonated with me. And so we started talking and we agreed to kind of move the conversation forward. But I said, I need to see you live because I can't, my whole thing with artists that I represent is I can open the door. I'll open the door for you and you can walk through it. Once you walk through it, you're on your own and the music's got to do the talking. Right. You have to win them over. I can get them to the show. I can make them listen to the album. I can make them watch a video, but that has to connect with them. So my family is in South Carolina now in Hilton Head, and I was going to be back there for, I think it was in February. And I said, if you could arrange a show anywhere in that Savannah, Charleston, Columbia, anywhere in that area, I'll come see you. So he booked a gig at this country bar in Columbia, South Carolina. And the audience was all these people that just wanted nothing but to line dance on a Saturday night. Barrow came out, and they're not that kind of band, as you know. So
wait. So this bar had both kinds of music, country and Western? Yeah, okay.
It was primarily a country bar.
Okay, sorry, I had to work in the Blues Brothers joke. So excuse the interruption. So go ahead.
And that was, so Will was not in the band at that point. The second guitar player, Eric, the keyboard player, was not in the band, and Bo was not in the band, the bass player. So they had Alex and they had Megan and Dylan, and I was so impressed with them. And literally the floor in front of them was lines of people line dancing that were like, they were going to do it. I don't care that this song doesn't really fit. We're going to line dance. So that was when it kind of sealed it. And then, technology is amazing. There's a lot of their shows online, so you can watch. There's a great one from the Funky Biscuit in Florida that, is up. So you can watch them. And then I was in Nashville in June, and I went to a rehearsal that they were doing, like a soundstage rehearsal, like full everything, with the band that's composed now. And I was blown away. Yeah. Like, even I loved them where they were, but then with these new members, with Eric and Will and Bo added to Alex and Megan and Dylan, it was just this amazing music. And the way I describe them to people that don't know them is, I said they're a 70s arena rock act playing in a club. That's because they put that kind of show on, and there's an acoustic set, and like when you go see their full 90-minute show, it's a ride, like those old Zeppelin concerts were, like those old Aerosmith concerts were. Yep. All of that stuff that we cut our teeth on is there. And Jane Lee Hooker kind of started it, but I've kind of, if I had to put my foot in any one pool, it would be that blues rock pool, because there's so many, Robert John and the Wreck, the band Feel, Blackberry Smoke. Like, there's so many bands in that field right now, or in that genre right now, that are just fantastic performers. Robert John, I've never seen them. We're doing a cruise with them in February. Oh, cool. We have the same agent. Intrepid, who rep Parker Barrow, also represent Robert John.
Oh, okay.
And like, they're fantastic. Like, those records and those guys, like, just what they've done. So it's that whole blues rock scene I just love. And, Joe Bonamassa has been an amazing proponent of that. And through his Keeping the Blues Alive Foundation, through his we released a single called The Healer. He put it right on his Cutting Edge Blues playlist on Spotify. Like, he's an amazing supporter. Yeah. And it's a really good scene. There's some other things that I'm kind of working on. I don't want to tip yet because we're not anywhere close, but there's just things that are exciting to me to potentially collaborate on down the road with some of these artists.
Very cool. Very cool. When I first had Dylan and Megan on the show, I was a little nervous because I see pictures of Dylan, and he looks very serious and kind of angry. And he's just a big teddy bear. I told them that I've adopted them. They're my adopted children, and they're just fantastic. And
Yeah, like I said, Megan could sing a phone book, and I could listen to it. Like her voice, I think, is so unique, and so there's just like I'll be listening to something, and there'll just be like a note that she hits that just kind of gives it that little extra like edge that she's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just all of them. Alex kind of coming into his own with being a contributing songwriter now, and like the world is theirs if they keep working. And to your point about their hard work, like they are this band that they live on the road, and they live to be on the road, and they love being on the road. So right now they played they're in the UK right now. They did their first show tonight with The Damn Truth, which is another fantastic kind of blues rock band from Canada. So we're doing 12 shows in 12 days all across the UK with The Damn Truth. So tonight was the first show for that tour. So much, as you might imagine, much of my last couple of weeks has been reaching out, doing press, setting up stuff, setting up awareness, setting up visibility for the shows. It's a little bit different because as support, the onus isn't on us as much as it would be if it were our show that we needed bodies there. But I want to try and get as many people there as possible. So in addition to releasing the new EP, Hold the Mash, which came out last week.
Yes.
So it's been setting that up, getting that ready to go, doing all the press, and kind of, to your question about kind of tying in the management with the label and the business. So my first job in the industry was mailing cassette singles to record stores. So that tells you, I'm pretty old, and we don't have stores anymore. So that was my first job. But if you look at music in '91, when I started in the industry, to 2025, the vehicles are all different. So, we've cycled through vinyl and 8 tracks and cassettes to CDs to digital files to streaming. But what isn't the same, or what isn't different, and what's exactly the same, is me saying, hey, Kevin, you got to hear this. Check out Parker Barrow. Check out this band, or check out Jane Lee Hooker. I just saw them. That has not changed. So people always ask me, what is it better or is it worse? And I say, well, it's better, but it's also worse. It's just different. And I think as any industry is different. Back in the day, you really had to have a gatekeeper let you in to play. Without the support of a label, either major or independent, to get you distribution, to get you into the stores, you were pretty much out of luck, unless you just did it wholly independently, where you just, sold, like a lot of the old punk bands did, just sold product and kind of sold made your shirts, sold them, all that kind of stuff. So it's just really different. And you used to tour to make money you toured to sell records because you made money selling records. Now you tour. Now you put out a record so you can tour because you make money touring.
Make money touring, yeah.
You don't make money from product.
Yeah.
Which is kind of challenging, but it's, at the same time, and I can't tell you how many times I've had this argument with people about Spotify, and I had this conversation with this guy, and it was one of the girls in one of the bands I managed, was her partner, and he said, I'm not putting our music on Spotify. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and he said, you're going to yell at me about that, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am, because that's an idiotic decision. He's like, well, we're kind of old. We want to be old school. And I'm like, you're in Perth. How do you expect people to find you? I mean, the fact that, we released Hold the Mash last week, it is on digital music sites around the world.
Right.
Instantly. So it used to be, if you told me about a band, I'd have to write it down. I'd have to be in a record store, and I'd have to be like, oh, Kevin told me about that band. Oh, I wonder if they have it. Do you have this in stock? No, we don't have it. We can order it for you. Nah, that's all right. So you had all those things had to connect before that record made it to you. Nowadays, you just go to Spotify and it's there.
Right.
And it's amusing to me, these people that get like 200 streams are pissed off that they can't make a living playing music. And it's like, you never could. Like,
Right.
it's like me saying, I got a set of golf clubs and I've taken some lessons. I want to go on the tour and be a professional player. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's not,
Right.
you have to have that special ability, and you have to have that drive and that perseverance. And back to your point about Dylan and Megan, they get that.
Right.
They understand that. And it's, by any means necessary. And it's, what do we need to do? We constantly encounter problems, but it's how you overcome them. What do we do? How do we get around it? How do we pivot to do something, or an opportunity comes up. It's like, well, we got to take advantage of this. And, so I do a lot of different things. I've done a lot of publicity the last couple of weeks, but there's also a lot of more strategy, long-term stuff, in addition to all the stuff that's, the next 3 months or the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very cool. And Spotify in a lot of ways is the devil. But in a lot of ways it's the angel. Because my buddy that, plays acoustic guitar can record it in his home studio and put it on Spotify, and anybody around the world can listen to that song. That wasn't the case for the vast majority of modern music history.
No, you can sell merch, you can sell tickets. Like, if you find a band that you love on Spotify, you can support them. But the thing about it is, if you look at the money that Spotify pays, the royalty rate that came from the labels to the artists back in the day wasn't any better. It just was more veiled and disguised, so you didn't realize it. And I don't agree with everything Spotify does, for sure, but by and large, they looked at, our industry was a disaster with Napster and Kazaa, and it was the Wild West, because all of a sudden this money factory that was CDs was drying up, and the labels were fat with all this money and spending money, and all of a sudden, kids were saying, why am I paying $15 for this CD for one song when I don't want the rest of the songs?
Right.
And then, the Apple store came out selling for 99 cents. And then, so Spotify solved a problem that I don't know how it would have been solved without somebody like Spotify, because it's like, that dog's out of the cage, or that toothpaste out of the tube, it's not going back in. So it's like, what do we do? And it gave us the opportunity again to release music and get to people, get it to people around the world.
Right. No, I mean, I mentioned we had a band on from Germany, and a band called Dear Robin, and stumbled across their music on Spotify, reached out through Instagram, got them scheduled on the show. Am I ever going to get a chance to see them live? Doubtful, unless they come to the States. But I can follow their music. I can share their posts. I can like what they're doing. I can share their music. And, it gets some ripple in the tide for them. Otherwise, never would have heard of them, never would have got to listen to it, never would have got to know them.
Yeah, actually, I'll give you an example. I think they're called Swim School. That I found, Swim School. So there was a British, email magazine or newsletter that had a live review of Swim School. So I read it. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I went to Spotify, pulled it up. There was I can't remember what the album was called. There were 2 editions of it. There was a deluxe edition. It's called This Is the Debut Album. And there's a deluxe edition, and it was like going back to the 90s with the wispy female vocals and the swirling guitars and kind of shoegazy, and it was amazing. And I immediately thought of one of my really good friends that I used to live with in LA that's in Canada now. And I'm like, hey, you got to check this record out. I think you'll really dig it. And he texted me back this morning. This is great. Thanks for sending. So it's like, that's that special music has that special quality of sharing and turning people
Yeah.
onto it.
Yeah, I was at a bar last night listening to some acoustic sets, and a guy sitting next to me says, "Hey, what have you been listening to lately?" And I said, "Have you listened to the new Parker Barrow EP?" "No, I haven't." And he immediately pulls up Spotify, likes it, so now it's in his queue.
Yeah.
So guess what he listened to today?
Yeah, and that's, I still firmly believe that great music will get heard. If your music is fantastic, it will get, in this day and age, you will get heard. It's just a matter of having the perseverance and being willing to put in the work to connect those dots and to get out in front of people.
Right, because it takes, sometimes it'll take multiple connections, right?
Yeah.
It's I heard one of your songs, then I saw you live, then I listened to more of your songs, and I bought your album, and then multiply that times 1,000 times, 10,000 times, whatever, and okay, now you've gone to another level with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's coming up for Wanted Management and Gregg Bell?
Well, we got the Parker Barrow record is out. We will work that through the end of the year. They have this UK tour, and then I think we have like 4 shows in December, and then we'll be down for the year. So the band is going to be doing some recording. So we just released the Hold the Mash EP. In probably May of next year will be Hold the Mash album.
Awesome.
So it will incorporate those 5 songs with a bunch of new stuff.
Awesome.
So that will be out in May. We'll be back on the road in February. So they're doing the Rock Legends cruise, which I'm actually coming back for. So we're playing. So that's the one Robert John is going to be on.
Yep.
Gene Simmons is on it. Blue Oyster Cult is on it. The Outlaws. Guess Who? Eric Burdon and the Animals. So a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
So we're doing that, and then they'll be back on the road in the States, and then Europe in April, May, back to the States, and then we just confirmed the Steelhouse Festival in November of next year in the UK. That's being headlined by Twisted Sister. So we're going to be over. We'll be at the end of the year. And I'm working on a couple other things over there towards the end of the year as well. So we'll be doing that. So there'll be a lot of road work, and there'll be a new record coming out around May.
Awesome.
And then on the Jane Lee Hooker front, they're kind of on hiatus, but Tracy Hightop from Jane Lee Hooker has a solo record coming out. So we're working on that, and that'll be out at some point next year.
Mm-hmm. And Jane Lee Hooker, perfect example of what we've been talking about. I did not know the band. You mentioned them to me. I've listened to them for the last few days. Fantastic. They're fantastic blues rock band. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you like them, Kevin, there is a Rock Palast show on YouTube that it's from a few years ago at this point. Yeah. It was their second record, Spiritus, they filmed that for, but it's a great live.
Okay.
They're fantastic. And Tracy is one of my favorite people in the world. She is a true Renaissance woman. So she has sleeve tattoos, but she is a real estate attorney. She worked in the DA office in New York City. Her first band was The Wives, and she was the drummer. And The Wives were a punk band that was managed by Hilly from CBGB's. So they used to practice in the basement of CBGB's. From The Wives, she joined Nashville Pussy on bass. So she toured the world with Nashville Pussy playing bass. And then when she started Jane Lee Hooker, she switched to guitar. So she's just like this. And again, such a nice person, like just a lovely person, and so talented in all these different areas. And there hasn't been much going on with them of late, but they're a fantastic band.
Yeah. And you say she has a solo album coming out
Next year.
Next year. Okay.
Next year, yeah. So we don't have a date on it. I just was working today on a special guest that's going to be on it. That'll be pretty cool. But it'll be out probably the first half of the year.
Great.
I would think. So we'll see what we still have to put the plan together and kind of figure all that stuff out. But I'm glad she's doing it and she's really excited about it. And stuff is sounding great.
Well, when it comes close,
different from Jane Lee Hooker, but great.
Cool. Well, when it gets close to time, would love to have her on the show and talk with her about it. That'd be great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So very cool. A lot of cool stuff. Now, as you're working on that Parker Barrow tour schedule, you need to find a way to get them to Louisville. Okay. I've been on them about that, and I've traveled to Cincinnati and to Nashville, and I saw them open for Kentucky Headhunters at the Shed in Maryville.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay.
And actually, that the Healer video, a lot of the footage from that was shot at that show.
At the Shed.
Yeah, at the Shed, and I thought, okay, well, some of these camera angles, I can probably find myself in the crowd, and I'm like, well, I was thinking, okay, I was standing right about there. I only see that old-looking guy with. Oh, wait, that's me. So yeah.
How far are you from the Shed?
3.5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. I have family maybe 45 minutes from there though. So
okay. Yeah. I can't say too much, but we're going to be back in that area in May.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of coming back for it.
Okay.
So we're supporting somebody that I'm pretty excited about.
Okay.
And it's going to be there. And I can't let it out yet, but
all right. Well, we can talk later, and I'll make every effort to be there, and we can have a drink together in person.
Yeah, that
watch some great rock and roll.
Yeah, I would love that. So I think that everything is looking good. So as long as everything's under control here, I'll come back for it.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right, Gregg, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
At Wanted MGMT, so at Wanted Management. That is Instagram, and Wanted Management on Facebook as well. So that's probably the best place to start. And I get approached all the time about people wanting to work together. And like I said, it's got to tick a lot of boxes for me to have interest. But I will help anybody or talk if I am moved or anything about your music kind of gets to me, I'm happy to help. I feel very fortunate to have all this experience at this point where if somebody calls me, and this happens all the time, where they'll say, hey, I just got offered this. What do you think? I'm like, that's great. Do it. Or no way, like stay away from it. Do not do that. I'm trying to think. I was just talking with somebody. Oh, because I'm not working with them, but they signed a contract without consulting an attorney, and they didn't have a manager. And so they were telling me the problems with the contract. And I'm just like, did anyone look over this? Like, did anybody? And they said, no, we just signed it. And that's pretty common. I had an artist in Western Australia that was the same thing. But so if anyone wants to get in touch with me, especially in the kind of the blues rock world, I welcome that. I love, I hope you can tell, music is a passion for me.
Yeah.
It's something that still excites me, and I still, love going to shows, love meeting people, love connecting with people, love, things like this, like talking with yourself about it.
Yeah.
So if anyone feels like they want to reach out, please send me a note.
That's awesome. That's great. Hopefully, maybe you can drum up some business from being on here. How about that?
Nice to get some business in Australia, like where I'm in the same time zone with people.
Well,
it's that, you can see probably the
I saw the
complaints about those, but I use those every day.
I'm sure you do.
Dealing with all these different, can I catch them now? Oh, it's too late. Oh, it's morning there. It's 9. They'll be in the office in the next half hour. So it's, those clocks are a big help to me.
Yeah. All right, Gregg, thanks so much for being on. It's been a ton of fun talking with you and getting to know you. Really appreciate what you're doing, and just thank you for taking good care of my friends at Parker Barrow. They're just fantastic folks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Been a pleasure to be on with you. Pleasure to get to know you. Thank you for your support. The episode you did with, and I'm blanking on the name, but with Dylan and Steve Gorman and the Cold Stairs.
Brian Mullins. Yeah.
Brian.
Cold Stairs. Yeah.
That was such a great show. And just, Dylan loves Steve Gorman, and having that connection and was just beautiful. And so I love things like this, and I love watching what you do, and this platform is a really important one for independent artists.
Yeah. Well, we try to make a difference. It may not be a big movement, but we try to make one, and if nothing else, it's a place for encouragement.
Absolutely.
In what artists are doing, because they're working hard. And
absolutely. And that's why I say that, because some just don't know. And if you're really focused on the music and you're grinding at that, you may not know that something's not a good deal, because there's so many people out to rip you off or take advantage of your music or sign your rights away from you or whatever. So that's why I'm always approachable for stuff like that.
Very cool. All right, Gregg, thanks again, my friend.
Absolutely.
Cheers, sir.
Cheers. Thank you, Kevin.